Blog Talk Radio.
Hello everyone, this is Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It is Friday morning, 5:30 in the morning here in Calgary, Alberta, and it's March 19th. I'm happy to be here and I'm happy it's Friday. And this is one child abuse survivor to another. We're on for 15 minutes and I'm just waking up having a coffee here this morning. And yeah, I'm glad you can be here. I'm glad to be here again, and I'm just glad it's Friday because I'm a little bit tired this week. And we've been looking at all week and even some of last week, understanding crisis, and I found that at www.childwelfare.gov. That's a child welfare information gateway. There's all kinds of good publications on there. You can go through and pick out, kind of what you're interested in, and it's all done by alphabetical letters. So, if you were looking at child abuse, you could just type in, you could look under the letter C and type in child abuse in the search thing, or just look under the letter C for all the publications that start with the C. And so that's how that works. And that's how I found this article, Understanding Crisis. And you can go there and pull that up too. And it's a good article for people who have experienced an intervention being done by CPS, and whether you were removed from the home or not. It can be kind of a scary situation. It's actually upsetting for the whole family, not just the children. And we had an intervention done when I was really young, and so I don't remember the actual intervention. I do remember the social workers coming to the house and for follow-up and stuff like that. So my sister remembers actually most of the whole thing, but she kind of blocked a lot of it out. But she remembers that they went to counseling and that they had to go a couple of times to counseling, and she was just young, but she does remember that. And so it's quite interesting. It was such a long time ago. My brothers who were living in the home at the time, if they were still alive today, would definitely remember the whole thing. It's too bad they're not here because, I would have really liked to talk to them about it. We never did talk about it because our family was so dysfunctional that, we didn't really sit around as a family and chat. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm interested in looking at this article. And I think there's just so many people that, have gone through this or know someone that has. So I thought it'd be interesting to pull it up and check it out. So yeah, we're on for another 12 minutes, and this is not a professional show. I don't hold any professional counseling certificates or any therapist, certificates or anything like that. I'm just a person who sits on Blog Talk Radio who wants to bring information to people. So this is not, it's not to replace professional help. And so listen at your own discretion, and if it's a topic that's going to bother you, just turn the show off. Not a problem. I wouldn't hurt my feelings at all. And if you're a young person, make sure you have someone listening to this with you, so that you can get some answers if you have some questions. Abuse is a very sensitive topic, and I believe it needs to be talked about. I believe that's why I'm doing this show, because I know it's so easy to push the topic of child abuse under the carpet because nobody wants to hear about it, nobody wants to deal with it, nobody wants to even think about it because it's so awful, it's so horrible, and such a bad subject, to even want to discuss. But when you grow up in an abusive home and that's all and you grow up as an adult and you realize what happened to you was wrong, and it just, to me, I've been living with abuse my whole life, even though the physical abuse stopped when I was 17, pretty well, even maybe, let's go even a little bit younger than that. But, the last time my mom actually tried to abuse me was when I was 17, and she just didn't get away with it. But the emotional abuse went on until she passed away, and so, another 13 years. So, I was in my 30s by the time I got done with her abusive tirades, and whether they were physical or verbal. And so, the abuse was still going on, and just different forms of abuse, right? My dad is very, he's a borderline schizophrenic, so his is mostly just psychological abuse. He still has a lot of issues, and he never really he never got any help, actually. And, he's paid the price for it because he's had a miserable life. But that's why I wanted to look at this show. So it's very important, if you're young, to make sure you get someone to listen to this with you, because you might have questions and you might just not be sure about what I'm talking about, and maybe never heard of it before. And it'd be great if you had somebody to help you just look for this information, just to sort of help you understand what I'm talking about if you haven't heard too much about it. So we're going to continue on with the article here, Rehabilitative Crisis Intervention. Yesterday we were looking at the crisis intervention team's investigation, psychological first aid, and then the rehabilitative crisis intervention, and that's where we left off. So I'm just going to keep going right there. It says, as Slaku states in Crisis Intervention, a handbook for practice and research, rehabilitative crisis intervention aims to help the client deal with the impact of the crisis event in all areas of the client's life. Through resolution of one crisis, the client can gain skills for facing and solving future problems, rather than developing a repetitive cycle of being rescued from similar crises. This way, people can learn how to problem solve, right? This does not mean that the primary focus is on all areas of the client's life. Instead, by staying focused and being successful in problem solving, clients can learn skills that are transferable to all areas of their lives and can be used to resolve future crises. And even though the focus is on current problems, many clients come to understand how past unresolved trauma contributed to maladaptive attempts to solve the present crisis. It's quite, if a parent can learn how to problem solve with the current crisis in their lives, or people in general, it helps to put in place what happened in the past, and then you start to see why you did something, or why a parent had done something the way that they did do it, and you can learn from that, right? That's just so important, right? That everybody sort of try to learn from these things, right? So that we don't repeat them, because that's the whole thing. I thought I grew up in such a bad situation. I mean, that most kids do, and not everybody has a good life. I would venture to say that there's more people having more struggles than there are people who are just sitting around having a great life. And so that's why we have so many problems in society today. If it was great, we wouldn't be having these problems. So, the thing to do is to not repeat this stuff as an adult, and that's what I decided. I thought, man, I am not going to continue on in the path that my parents have laid out before me. It was horrible, and I thought, I can't live like that the rest of my life, And even up until about 3 years ago, I was still continuing on in my own sort of self-destruct. I wasn't doing drugs or anything like that, but I was feeling so down, wouldn't reach out for help, and really still very much not happy with the way that life had gone, and didn't know how to deal with it, you know what I mean? And so it's so hard it can carry on into your adulthood, and I don't have any children or anything, and I thought, if I had children, would I have done the right thing? Would I have been a good mother? And these things would always come into my mind, And now I look back and I think, yeah, because I made the decision that I was going to have a good life, and that I was going to have peace in my heart, and I wasn't going to have this anger or this hatred anymore in my heart. It really did help me out. And so, sometimes, even like within the last 3 years, things will come up, and it'll push me to start feeling the same way that I was. And I think, no, I'm just not going back there, because I want to move forward in my healing journey, and I want to, I want to win this fight. So, I decided I was going to win, and I was going to stay alive, and I was not going to further damage myself any more than my parents had already done, or that I was doing on my own. And I thought, no, I have to take responsibility for my adult life, and I think we all do. And that's why parents, my parents never did take responsibility for what they did. And my dad, he apologized and stuff many years ago to me. I don't know who else he apologized to, but he did apologize to me, and he said that he wished that he had done things differently and stuff like that. But I don't know how sincere it was, because I think he might have just been feeling guilty, but I don't think he was feeling responsible. Because even today, my brothers are gone. One committed suicide, and the other one had a drug overdose. He just always was just doing way too many drugs, and he had a drug overdose. And my dad, I don't know about my mom, she's passed on now, but my dad just doesn't even, when people mention them, he was just like, oh well, they didn't respect me, and they were just from the devil, and that's his answer to the whole thing. It has nothing to do with the fact of how he treated them when they were growing up. And so, I don't really think that he's all that sincere about, what he had done. And even to my mom, he says today that he loved her very much, but he never told her that ever the whole time they were married. It's funny. It's almost like saying, oh, well, nobody knows the truth, so I'll just pretend I was this great guy. And, I'll just pretend that I loved my kids and that I loved my wife and I treated them well, because, I'm the only one who really is speaking out here and knows the truth. I mean, my brother knows the truth, and so does my sister, but they're just not saying anything. So probably just to keep this dysfunctional family going as much as they can. And to me, the truth is just everything. And so without truth, we're not going to stop child abuse. That's the whole issue, right? Child abuse will never stop as long as there's people hiding it and hiding behind it and hiding underneath of it and just hiding from the whole thing, period. You know what I mean? The silence has to stop. And we're not getting very far in this article, but this comes to my mind. That's the whole issue behind child abuse. That's what the abusers want it hushed up, because obviously they don't want people to know what they're doing and what they did do and what they have done. And the people who were abused don't want to say anything because it's such a horrible thing to even think about. A lot of times they were told that there would be repercussions if they did tell, so they grow up hearing this. Their lives are being threatened and told that they'll be killed if they tell, and that's still going on today. And even it's just a psychological thing. It's kind of like, well, I don't want anybody to know. They'll think that I'm crazy. They'll think I'm my parents, everybody loves my parents, and here, I've been abused, and they'll just tell me, no way, that's not possible. You know what I mean? There's no way that could have happened in your life. I know this happens to people. It had happened to me. Lots of people love my parents, and especially when I was an older teenager, people didn't see that early abuse, the really heavy-duty physical abuse, right? So they didn't see my parents fighting, and they didn't see the viciousness, and so they love my parents, and so they have a hard time grasping what I'm saying, and they don't quite get the fact that my mom almost bashed my skull in with a rolling pin, and really didn't mind just kicking my butt, on a pretty much a regular basis, and then telling me I was worthless and just nothing to her, spitting in my face and stuff. And they just think, oh, your mom was so nice, she made cookies, and we just loved her. And I'm thinking, well, you didn't live in the same home with her. You know what I mean? You didn't grow up around her. You weren't brought up by her. And it's unfortunate that people are like that. They only choose to believe what they want to. And so it's sad. The truth just has to come out. I think child abuse should be talked about like all the time, because I think child abuse should be front and center on the newspaper. Not reports of children being murdered by their parents and their caregivers. Those should be on the front page too. But there should also be on the front page every day a huge topic for people, everyone who's reading the paper, that just says, look, this is what we have to do. We have to stop child abuse. And so that people will think about it every day, and they might start talking about it, and then something might get done. But because it's so hushed up and pushed under the carpet, it's kind of like, hey, what we don't see, we don't think about. What we don't hear about, we don't think about. And what we don't know, we don't care about. And so that's why it's so important to look around at the children in your life, and make sure that any child that's in your life, no matter who they are, who they belong to, that you look for the signs and symptoms of child abuse and what the signs and symptoms are of all the different types of child abuse. And then if you suspect a child is being abused, you make the phone call. So important, right? We can't understate that enough. And so we have about a minute left. I ended up talking through the whole thing, but next week we'll look at overview of teams related to CPS and specialized multidisciplinary teams. We're going to look at crisis as an opportunity to initiate change and just finish off the article. There's quite a bit left, so it'll probably take us a few days next week to get through it. Excuse me. I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, and I'm so happy about that. You can check their website out, www.dreamcatchersforabusedchildren.com, and you can get the information there about all the signs and symptoms of child abuse, the different kinds of child abuse. What is child abuse? If parents are having a hard time coping and they think they might be abusing their children, they just don't want to, thank God, you can get help on there. There's all kinds of resources and links. And there's books that are written by best-selling author Donna Shear and co-authored and written also by author and CEO and founder Sandra Dawn Potter. There's all kinds of great stuff on there. It's a great website, www.dreamcatchersforabusedchildren.com. And I wrote a book, and Dreamcatchers published it, and they left it in my voice. It's called The Life of Death, The Redemption by Lori-Ann Smith. It's in Biographies and Memoirs at lulu.com. And you can pick that up. The proceeds, all the proceeds, are going to Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, as I don't want any money for that book. I want it to go and help stop child abuse and help prevent raise awareness and education and prevention of child abuse. So they're honoring my wish. They're accepting the money, and that makes me so happy. And so, I hope you'll pick up a copy, because you'll know that when you do, that money is going to be used to stop child abuse. So thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day. I'll be on tonight, 9:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time for for child abuse prevention, and human rights abuse prevention is up to us. And I hope you have a great day. You're in my heart, and just take care, everybody, and make sure you're good to yourself. Okay, bye-bye.